Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon and to hear more about achieving efficient, cost-effective, multi-site connectivity. Okay. So over the next 30 minutes, I will highlight some of the challenges on connectivity and setting up networks that are going on in the market, as well as some of the traditional ways of buying connectivity and what those challenges are and how they're, because of our current network scenario, becoming more and more complex, and a new solution that will prove to be effective and cost efficient in terms of building out networks. As we go through, I will pause and ask you a couple questions to share back. And as we mentioned, Kurt, feel free to add questions. We will put a Q&A section at the end of the presentation. So we'll keep track of all the questions that get asked and address them as best we can. So let's get started. So today's enterprise network, in terms of a network environment today, globalization and mobility are adding many challenges to the traditional workforce that used to be within one brick-and-mortar building. To that, you really also have the explosion and growth of cloud computing, big data requirements, collaborative communications between these locations, office locations, that are really pushing the need for connectivity, and in many cases, different connectivity solutions, because all applications and elements are not created in the same way or need the same connectivity requirements. When you combine that with the multi-locations of businesses that are coming together, there's an element of complexity that is multiplied as you have to look at every one location. So it's creating an interesting scenario where there's still the element of the single location and what's needed to connect it, tied into a complexity of applications, of multiple business locations, of multiple solutions to connect those pieces. When we look at the numbers that are contributing to this complexity, you really have a lot of the same things we're reading and hearing about that are all top of mind. The cloud market is exploding. Applications are becoming a new standard way to build and use, whether it's simple business, contact management, into finance. Every organizational silo really is playing and optimized through the application market. Network devices, whether it's the network devices that people are bringing in, whether it's the network devices that are provided by a company, or when you begin to think of the Internet of Things, the sensors, devices, and monitors that tie into physical assets that are part of a company, adding into big data analytics. Big data really being the amount of storage that's done from files and backup to also the amount of analytics that are created in looking at our businesses or analytics that are created in looking at our devices. All of this is driving up mobile IP traffic. It's driving up global IP traffic. It's driving and growing the amount of bandwidth that's needed and adding an amount of complexity into the network designer and IT manager today. As you think of these elements of virtualized workspace and globalization, of cloud services being in data centers, the big move in trend with a lot of the change in connectivity, a lot of the cloud adoption, a lot of relying on outsourced applications, is very much that these elements are now in data centers versus in the basement. They've moved outside the brick and mortar walls of a business. Partly because there's so many different business locations that need to access this data, partly because of the capacity and bandwidth and price of bandwidth that's now available to connect data centers to your business. Collaborative communications has become a key element of that globalization, or multiple offices. How do you get a workforce that's distributed across states, across countries, to communicate and act in one? And a lot of the solutions to that are collaboration, video, real-time applications that make teams feel as if they're working together. And then there's the business continuity and compliance of making all of these work together, tied in with data storage and backup. all of these really adding to operational complexity, huge demands on the network, increased network cost. If you just kind of go back to the default or the solution that's been used to connectivity today for a single location or for point-to-point solutions, the solution doesn't scale as well. Frequent network expansions with the acquisitions of new locations, with interconnecting with partner environments, with the spinning up of new cloud computing in different locations, all leading to the challenge that's really there, and how do you best design, price, order, and manage the new complexity that's associated with and addresses the demands of all these new connectivity elements. I'm going to pause there and just ask you to share with me what you're seeing as some of the challenges when you're connecting multiple locations into the same network element. And I'll share the results of this with you, but it's it's interesting. It's a three-way split right now between cost, the coordination of carriers, and the lack of transparency, which is what we see with our current customers today. So that's exciting that we're able to maybe share a solution with you and a different way of looking at some of that. I'm going to close this out, share it with you quickly so you can see the results. Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about a solution. So let's go through a scenario. We've got a big business. It may have 6,000 employees, 100 plus locations, 27 states, and actually a few extra countries. More and more you're finding, whether it's an outsource or a partnership, you have some locations that do extend outside the U.S. and multiple data centers. One of the important things about data centers, particularly when looking at big data, is location and proximity. So how do you maintain and keep some proximity but also keep a centralized balance? We're not going to get into the solution there in this particular webinar, but we will want to put that into the complexity of an application and network that needs to be supported. Whether it's in this particular company could be using internet access at some locations, data storage and backup across the locations, streaming video tutorials, and then cloud computing for their development environment. So a pretty broad range, but something also to think about as they look to bring in 3 new locations in Texas, Illinois, and Virginia. It really becomes, where do I start first? And the first piece of that question is, first I need to figure out who's connected to those locations. That's the very first starting point. I can start with my existing supplier and understand if they're connected to those locations. But what's also important to ask is, what are you doing at those locations? Are they remote sales offices that really you probably need some internet access but don't have a lot of high capacity computing going into them? Are they directly connected into a cloud computing environment? Are they using a high volume of video services that needs a quality of service that enables those video services? One of the important pieces moving forward on the enterprise network is very much about understanding your location. Who's there, what applications they use, so you can select the best connectivity for that location and better evaluate the price and when it can be installed. Installation is always a contributing factor. We want to say it's about price and about availability, but in this day and age of service-based economy, everything's a just-in-time. We're always needing that connectivity. So the balance of price against availability and time to turn up definitely comes into understanding when you're implementing a new or bringing on a new location or changing connectivity to a new application to an existing location. So let's follow that scenario. One of the problems is you go to your existing vendor. Most enterprises have anywhere from 2 to 4 vendors they may be working with. Some have more. Large global enterprises could have many more. And when you look at those multiple locations, one of the things is really understanding the services that are availability and not having that transparency into what's at that building. Not having the optimal terms for cost and delivery times. How many times have you potentially gotten a response from an existing service provider that says, this is all we have that we can do in that time frame? And at that point, because of the lack of transparency or understanding into other service providers, that may be the only choice you have and not the most cost efficient. Ordering processes can be inconsistent site by site. Service quality can be inconsistent site by site. Someone who's able to give a premier service in a Texas footprint may not be able to have that same service available in Virginia. A national service provider may have a great network in one location, but actually partner and go off net in another location. And in that case, you may have inconsistency in SLAs and delivery terms that really don't work for your business. So a lot of it is really beginning to understand what those elements are for your business. Your traditional options, as we mentioned, you go to your large national provider. It's one vendor to manage. That's a pro. Less complex design. They're doing a lot of the design for you. They're coming back with the solution that they recommend for your location. Very often less risk. One qualification, a vendor you've worked with, one person you've built a trust relationship with, and that single contract and bill. Now the other side of that, some of the cons are, it's a take it as it is pricing. It's a take it as it is technology sometimes. Even though they may have a broad portfolio, they may be pushing a specific technology as the solution for your network. A failure, if you're not using multiple, if it's only going through one large, could be catastrophic, could be impacting to your business. Catastrophic sometimes nowadays just means being off of internet for 4 hours and not being able to do transactions or send email or reach clients. Not having that secondary option, and not necessarily cost competitive. So again, there's a balance there. Large service providers are a predominant choice and solution because of the low risk, but some of the challenges are, do they have the right solution? Is it the right cost? And is it the right support level you're looking for? One alternative to that, and often a alternative provider that many enterprises have, is a managed service provider. Again, one vendor to manage, single contract and bill, multiple product options, because typically that managed service provider is going a little deeper into your IT and is working with a broader range of partners to bring connectivity solutions to you. Some of the cons, a lot of their services they don't manage or have control, so there's a different level of SLA and quality. You've got more complexity in terms of those network elements that are coming together. You may be buying more bandwidth into a building that you need because those products are set. And it could be more complex to manage and support, as you may have multiple managed service provider or a managed service provider in a large single provider. And that's really moving to that third option, which is you can have multiple providers. You can spend the time finding all of the providers that connect into the buildings, that you have locations, that have the best price, that have the best technology, and buy uniquely either local from each one of those. You get multiple products to choose from. You get sometimes very often better price points to choose from. You get local and proximity. So a lot of very positive benefits on the pros in terms of that network ability to support the location. On the cons is you get a lot of complexity. If you don't have an organization that's been built up or designed to manage multiple providers, you've got different SLAs, different contracts, different support, different ordering processes. In this day and age where more and more is going into mobile devices, bring your own device, IT desktop, cloud computing, virtualizations, a lot of the complexity is at different levels. And one of the better solutions may be to look for that simplicity at the network to connect your people with the destinations, the applications, the solutions they need to do their business. And really one of the inherent pieces here is that no one carrier has ubiquitous footprint. So I'm just going to put up another quick poll. I'm curious of the team that's there. How many service providers do you work with today for connecting your businesses? While you're finishing out that, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that connectivity challenge because I've mentioned no one service provider offers ubiquitous coverage. And this is pretty true. We're familiar with this. You can definitely go to a service provider who can give you a price for all locations, but they probably don't have their own network in that location. So it really becomes a very fragmented, complex market, this connecting commercial addresses to where they need to go. And as we look at that, and I'm going to go, I'll share with everybody, the majority of the team has 2 to 5 service providers. We do have a couple people with 1 service provider. And I'll share that so you get a quick look at that and see what the other folks on the call are looking at. Okay. So as we get back and talk a little bit about that connectivity challenge, and I know we're spending a lot on this, but I think it's an important part when we go to look at the solution, is making sure we really understand, why is it so hard to get connectivity, or the connectivity I want? I think we all, if we've bought connectivity, know and have an inkling that you can go to that one service provider that can get you almost anything. But is it on your terms? Is it at the price point you want? Is it in the time frame you want? And really part of it is, there are 2,584 last mile providers in the United States that connect about 9.6 million commercial addresses. And that element, which is called last mile connectivity, that element of last mile connectivity, interesting, is where 68% of the network cost is, 82% of the downtime, and 99% of the complexity is. This is the part where, as enterprise IT and network managers, there's a lot of headache. As application providers and data centers, there's a lot of challenge in terms of how you get to the people and connect them. And as service providers, there's a lot of different options. One of the things, when you get 2,584 providers, you have a lot of different service delivery time frames, leads, variations, quality in your customer experience. And you really have that lack of transparency into, how do I figure out who's connected where, who has capacity? If they own that capacity, are they reselling that capacity? Does that capacity or technology meet the needs of my application? And really at the other end, there's 5,100 data centers and carrier hotels, places or destinations you could be going to now that you have moved either your data, your storage, or your business applications outside of the brick and mortar of your business location. So it really paints a picture of what needs to be bridged, and what some of the potential opportunities are to solve and simplify this connectivity challenge. So one of the elements, let's make sure, here we go. One of the elements as we look at it is, it's not about the service provider network and what technology and where my network goes. From the enterprise standpoint, it's really about that location, because from your point of reference, it is your 1, 2, 5 locations that become critical. The other 9.6 million locations are less relevant to you and what you're looking for. So as we go and look at that, we want to stay ahead of these challenges by finding solutions that offer the greatest network coverage, that offer visibility into competitive pricing and capacity, things that allow you to make smart decisions on what you need. Visibility is a big one. Solving for complexities is great, and what we want to do in terms of tools and self-design and real-time pricing and understanding the delivery. But again, that really ties back to visibility, understanding, seeing, and having insight into these networks that have moved out of your office and into the world and really go around the world. Simplicity in contract as billing is a given. No one in any business, in any industry, or in your personal life is looking for more complexity, more contracts, and more billing. I mean, I think that's a given in any service provider or service industry, is making sure that there is a simplicity there. And then the flexibility to grow and change. So Global Capacity's approached these challenges with what we feel is a marketplace model. An online digital marketplace is a marketplace that brings together buyers and sellers. It uses automation, aggregation, and information to simplify the task at hand, in this case, buying network connectivity. And if you think of other really successful marketplace models, you're talking about Amazon, Uber, Airbnb, all very dynamic and interesting companies that are bringing together and aggregating a very fragmented, hard-to-view market and making it accessible to the buyer and providing you information to make decisions. The automation and application piece is that software piece that lets you interact and put the information you're looking to and get information back. The aggregation piece is bringing together a bunch of fragmented elements to work as one unified whole. And the information is visibility, providing you enough information to put your requirements out, to gain the solution you're looking for, and make an informed decision. The right option, the perfect option, may not be there. So how do you make sure you're making the right trade-offs that you need that's successful for your business? So that network marketplace solution, it's a marketplace of networks, as we talked about, that connects buyers with the network that would otherwise be hard to find. You know, some network is easy to find, others are not. Depends on where your locations are and where those businesses are. When you look at a marketplace solution, it's ideally situated to address the multi-location, multiple states, multiple cities, multiple countries, when that network gets complex and there are other players in hand. If you have 10 locations in the same metro, you may be fine working with your local carrier and not need a marketplace environment. But now and more today, that is not the case, that everything is within one metro. So it's that marketplace is an extensive database of locations, service attributes, and pricing. It's a cloud-based application, so you can log in with a secure login, put in addresses, and start getting prices in seconds. So we get quick information, transparency into pricing, into capacity. With our marketplace, the Global Capacity Marketplace, it's not just about software and applications. We actually have a physical interconnected network that allows us to give near ubiquitous reach. 98% of all commercial buildings are able to be reached across a broad range of access technologies, whether DSL, along for sensors or remote security, internet, T1, Ethernet, fiber, wavelengths, all become applicable. Simplified provisioning and management. No matter what solution you choose, you have the same provisioning, the same management, one contract, one SLA, and one bill. And that SLA is going end to end. So what do I mean by visibility into a location? Because some of these are newer terms, or there's a spin on them from the application. Well, it means putting in an address, having that address be pinpointed on a map, and then understanding what's the Verizon pricing, the XO products, the Comcast cable services, what are the LATA or franchise or tariff pricing? Is there fiber in that building? What is the price point for a global capacity infrastructure? Having full visibility and understanding into what's going on in that location to best choose solutions. And having that in short time. So having that quickly enough that you can make decisions versus waiting 2 weeks, 10 days, 4 days for a quote or information on one product. So if we give it a try, we've got 3 locations. We think about our 3 different locations. You know, we're going to go into the interface, put in an address. That address, one of the great things in using applications is sometimes you don't need to know the exact address, the LATA, the longitude, the NPNXX, all the details. What's interesting is different service providers require different information to do a quote. We normalize that and are able to search an extensive database to find that address and confirm if we have the right address. We're then able to bring up multitude of solutions in terms of what's available, whether it's a DS1, a 500 meg Ethernet, but then also go into some questions on quality of service, the type of Ethernet, the type of internet services that you may need. So really opening it up from an IT manager to really put in some of their requirements in what they're looking for, and therefore filtering out all of the alternatives that may be there in the location. So if you think of it, first it's identifying the location, next it's identifying what's available, and then it's beginning to filter it down so that you're getting the solution you want. So as you edit, choose options, and reprice based on those options, you'll see here our award-winning, just won the 2015 Communication Solutions Product of the Year, solution that talks about multiple locations and allows you to begin to filter by bandwidth, by term, by what the product is and the connectivity. What's a great piece of this is also you can begin to choose your interconnect point. Which data center are you going to? Do you need to go to 4 data centers, 3 data centers? If you added in a new data center, would it save you money on circuit cost and pricing? It's really a great what-if scenario to build and design and visually automate a lot of the pricing of what the best connectivity is and what happens when you add or remove locations into that network. What's great about this is when you're at the end of doing all this research, because it is a marketplace and it is there for you to not only design, price, but buy, order, and manage your network, you're able to click in order to connect and click in order to start ordering your services and go through a single ordering process in terms of what's available. One of the great things is once you actually start ordering, there's a full visibility in terms of report and managing what quotes you've done, the volume of quotes that you've done, how many orders you have, what the status of those orders are, what products those orders are for, what are you actually quoting, what are you actually buying, what's in provisioning and what's in billing, and a detailed breakdown of the billing that can show you what different type of circuits you're using and how much you're overall paying for those different technologies. You know, in many cases this seems very straightforward in terms of what would be available, but more and more we find when we start having conversations with customers about what they're buying, what they have connected where, are they using a traditional technology, have they moved to new next generation technology, there's a lot of different pieces that they need to pull together. One of the great things from this is not only can you view and print this, you can actually export this data and integrate into existing or current management and billing systems. So it's designed to work within an ecosystem that's pre-existing. It's not something that now you have this and you have to use this for your element. This is supposed to be about connectivity made simple, about finding your locations, buying them, but then managing them. And we all know a big piece of the management is on the financial standpoint and understanding where and what's going on and in what state it's in. I'm just going to put up one more poll here while we're going. I'll talk a little bit more about the reporting, but you know, what I've shown you is some screenshots and walked through an example. You know, I'm sure that many of you, if this is of interest or you've run into some of these challenges, are thinking you'd like to get, you know, you'd like to put your addresses in there and see, get a little bit better sense because you've got a greater familiarity with your addresses. So we'll definitely open up for doing live demos and following up, and we'll also send out a survey at the end that will enable you to do that. But I just wanted to capture that after seeing some of these screens. Hopefully a couple of you may want to get a little bit deeper and more personalized in your demo so that it's more relevant to your locations and what you're doing. Okay. So, you know, as you really look at what this is, it's in many ways, it's an application-enabled customer experience. That application that enables the designing, buying, and management of the network piece is really built to empower you as the user, as the designer, as the person with the requirements, with the greatest knowledge of the location. Whether it's designing global, leveraging global routes or databases, network locations and data centers, whether it's pricing, getting locations, competitive pricing, and timely, accurate pricing, or simplifying ordering, whether it's a consistent provisioning and turn-up, knowing it's the same test and turn-up processes that you can work with your team, understanding that the team we have actually has people on the street and vans that can do extended wiring or additional field services, and then that ongoing simplification of management and support and working with one organization to make sure your network is optimized and growing. Really leading to, so this is the piece, so it's that application enablement of all of the pieces that provides that simplicity and that visibility into all the steps. It actually gives you some control back of that outsourced network element. And we all know as the network moved from within our building to outside of our building with a service provider, there's a certain amount of control that was lost. And through a marketplace and an application that provides you the ability to put your requirements in, we feel that this is a tool that enables you to gain some of that control back. The visibility into service price, the ability to connect 9.6 million business locations, that normalization of the last mile, independent if you're in a big shiny building in a major NFL city, or if you're out in a manufacturing or development facility that's out in the Great Plains, or you're in a call center, connecting into a call center that's in the Pacific Islands. How do you normalize that experience so that you can predict and simplify each project you're going into and focus on the core elements of your business that are critical for that location coming up online? And the simple use of the portal or an API, that's what allows us to work with your existing applications, TEMS billing systems. So whether you're, that connectivity coming out, you're going to need to be connecting to internet pairing, unified communication, other global enterprise offices, backup, storage, business applications. Having a single provider that allows for diverse technologies, diverse solutions, diverse bandwidth, so that you're paying for the right service for the right location that you need, makes it more about you and your business. And that enterprise benefit is really the cost, having that confidence that you're getting competitive pricing, the optionality of technology and service, choosing what's right for what you're doing and your location, mitigating your risks as you qualify one provider, and that provider has qualified multiple underlying solutions, so they're taking on a huge part of the risk, the SLA and the guarantee. You still have that single contract and that single SLA. Working with people who spend time and focus and their experience is on network and supporting your team. Working with people who have a process for how to do this in and out every day. This is the core business. And most important, and I've touched on it a couple times, is that information, the visibility and transparency into what's going on so that you can make the right decision and ask for the right requirements versus kind of taking a wait and see or this is all that's available solution. So you're making better decisions, more control of the decisions that you're actually making and putting forward. A little bit about Global Capacity. We were founded in 2006 through a series of different acquisitions. At the end of the year, last year, we acquired a additional footprint, which was the old COVAD, which is a aggregated copper network, which gives us continued additional coverage to the fiber and Ethernet services that we have. And we will continue to grow. We are privately held. We currently have just over 22,000 customers with network connectivity points, 2,007 central offices, 41 core points of presence in terms of data centers and applications, and that's really important in terms of proximity, being as close to your location and as close to your applications as we need to get. We run automated pricing for over 19,000 unique rates from 444 carriers in 75 countries. And that's the trust factor of knowing the most information about a location to help you understand what's available. Maintaining local data from multiple sites across multiple countries. Again, that same trust of available information. Connectivity to over 9.6 million U.S. commercial addresses, and we currently proactively monitor and manage over 200,000 circuits for faults and tolerances. We continue to be setting the bar in innovation and winning awards in terms of how we've applied technology and software to simplify connectivity while enabling a cost-effective and efficient network delivery solution to wholesale, to enterprise, and to small and medium business. I want to thank you all for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your day.